Long break after I clap. 3, 2, 1.
Hello, uControllers. Today we're going to walk you through a cinema or a media room setup, but this time with a zone processor in place of an MHUB.
I'm Justin.
Oh,
this
yeah.
is Dylan.
I forgot. My name is Dylan.
We're HDA.
Yeah, let's get started. Okay, so what type of kit do we normally find in a cinema room or a media room where a zone processor might be a good choice?
So it's typically a surround sound system, an AV system of some sort. We're using an AV receiver. We're using traditional source devices like Apple TV, Sky Q, Kaleidoscope, Blu-ray players, those things really.
TV,
and of course a TV,
yeah.
Perhaps a projector,
Yeah.
but this is biased more towards a TV installation.
TV, okay. And what about sort of ambience or like other stuff like
So
that?
smart lighting, of course, gives the best possible experience of the space, and of course in a media room that could even include blinds. So
Yeah,
if we're doing
blinds.
lighting and blinds combinations,
It could be or like a lamp or something else that's in the room. Think of a living room or a high-end living room or something where a family comes back to chill out at the end
relax,
of the day.
absolutely.
Relax, yeah.
and we just want to make that experience as good as possible, really.
You know what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's the type of kit that you normally find in a really nice living room, perhaps a cinema or something like that. Zone processor, good piece of kit for that. Okay, so what would be the control expectation once we've set up the zone processor to do its thing?
In this typical situation, the AV receiver or the main AV device is going to be the switching device. So all the sources, all the playback devices are coming into that AV receiver.
So everything is plugged into the AV
Everything
receiver.
comes into the AV receiver.
Right.
The AV receiver is feeding the television, and we're putting the control layer on top of that to combine the sources, the AV receiver, the lights, TV, all of that.
And how are we going to control that?
So infrared or IP are going to be our control methodologies.
Okay.
Over here, we've got 5 infrared ports.
Yep.
On a zone processor at the minimum, and we've obviously connected to the network. We'll do IP control.
Perfect. And what interface is going to be good for this?
Best interface possible for this kind of AV experience, still the uControl remote.
Ta-da!
Exactly that. So uControl remote would be the best possible experience here, because there's a good mix of AV equipment.
So essentially, this solution is going to use a zone processor and the uControl remote, and bish bash bosh, you've got a automated room.
We've got a smart room.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, and here's a $1 million question. What is the difference between the MHUB here and the zone processor?
That's an
Over
excellent
to you,
question.
Justin.
All right. So the zone processor would be perfect where all the AV gear and the display are close to each other. When everything's close together and closely located, the zone processor is possibly the best solution. And the reason for that is infrared. It's all about infrared control. We do a lot of infrared control, and that is where the practicalities of your choices are quite important.
So if you think about what Justin is saying there is like you've got infrared ports, right? But you've only got one box.
Yes.
Right? So that one box can only go in one place.
Yeah.
Does it go by the TV or does it go by the cabinet, which might be in the corner of the room?
Yeah.
Especially if you've got a setup like this where there's just the display and the speakers are dotted around. Like where is the kit going?
Yeah.
Where this would need to go near most of the kit, but then how do you
Absolutely.
control that display, or how do you control something else?
Yeah. And the limitation is the length of the cable on these IR transmitters, right?
Observe. This is what it ships with, a cable this wide, which is, I don't know, what, 1.5 meters, I think?
2 meters, give or take.
I don't think I've got 2 meter arms.
Nah, so then 1.5 meters.
1.5 meters. So you're limited by that sort of range, right? Whereas with MHUB,
MHUB would choose when the AV equipment and the display, especially if it's a projector, are not close together.
this could go by the sources.
That could go where all the AV gear is, and then
this
the display receiver, which is delivering video to the projector or the TV, but is also delivering that control endpoint.
Not only that, you get CC at that
You get
endpoint.
CC,
So
if your
it
display
responds-
is compatible,
Yep.
absolutely.
Not always, but it definitely. All our
our
displays in
displays
our
are.
offices turn on and off with CEC, and you get the I/O at the source end,
Correct.
and at the display end, and you have IP as well, but you have a number of options. So
there are more ports that in an MHUB selection, and of course it's much easier to terminate a Cat6 cable and put it between these two and still have control and video at the end of that.
So what are we trying to say in summary?
Plan your systems carefully. If your gear is close together and you want the quickest, simplest installation, a zone processor is absolutely going to solve the situation for you. If your gear is not close together, or especially if you've got a projector, it's an incredibly good argument for using an MHUB Mini for that solution.
Give yourself some options.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just have a bit more flexibility with an MHUB over a zone processor, but 100% a zone processor can do it with a bit of forward planning.
Yep.
One more thing, very importantly, the zone processor supports Wi-Fi, doesn't it?
It does.
But should you use Wi-Fi if you're using it in this type of context?
You shouldn't. Just because you can doesn't mean you say you should. So we don't recommend Wi-Fi for control spaces when it's your master controller, because it's very hard to beat the reliability of a copper connection.
That's right. So why did we put Wi-Fi there? Actually, it's because it can also act as a remote expansion if you have a control system driver.
In control systems, you could use it as that.
It's a little get-out-of-jail card.
The get-out-of-jail thing is important because, let's be honest, especially if you're retrofitting, it's much easier to retrofit control using a zone processor. And if you don't have a copper connection from the network, well, then Wi-Fi is your only option, and that's why it's there.
But again, if you're planning ahead, the real important thing is try and use the Ethernet. You're going to get, it's more reliable, it's faster,
everybody's
it's less likely to go down. You're just going to avoid headaches in the future. So that's a good, little top pro tip. Let's call it that.
Pro tip.
Okay, right. So we did another video somewhere. It was actually about setting up the MHUB in this sort of scenario.
Yeah, exactly the same scenario.
Which you can watch with a link somewhere. And I said we could do it in 20 minutes. It turned out
we did a lot of talking and explaining, so it wasn't 20 minutes.
We're waffling again. This is going to be another 40-minute video. But we're going to try and... I said this yesterday.
You did.
I failed. We failed. I also blame you a little bit. But, we're going to try and do it a little bit quicker, but there are a couple of caveats again, just with the other video.
Exactly the same. We've pre-set up some basics. We've done the first boot process, so we've connected the hardware, we've wired up all the connections, we've put our infrared transmitters where they have to be, we've made sure everything's physically ready to be switched on and ready to work. We've put the uControl remote onto the Wi-Fi network. It hasn't been set up yet, but it is ready and waiting on the network.
It's ready. It's ready to go. It's in like a ready-to-go state for the software configuration part. Yeah. We're not here to teach you to suck eggs. It is in the user manual.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is flipping easy. It's literally like pictures, pages and pages of pictures. Yeah. You should be able to follow those instructions.
Yeah, and to expedite things, we've done 1 or 2 packs. We've loaded 1 or 2 packs on the system already.
Yeah.
So that we're exactly as Dylan said, we're not going to show you the obvious.
Yeah, you're not going to sit here and watch us slowly install the same thing over and over again. It's insanely boring. And so we're just trying to keep it a little bit exciting, so you don't fall asleep whilst watching the video. Okay, so let's get started. First thing that we need to get started off with, now that we've got access, how do we get onto the zone processor, and how do we start?
Right, so if you've done the first boot, you've already on the zone processor, but when you're starting first boot, use the app to find the devices, get the IP address, use your IP scanner if you're a pro, if you've got some sort of scanning tool on your computer, get the network address, type in the IP address into the system.
Yep.
And you're up. You're onto the... You
could use the app. Again, another pro tip is it's a bit more of an enjoyable experience on a laptop screen. Everything is a bit bigger. Just type in the IP address into a browser and boom, up it comes. So what's the first thing that we start?
So the first thing we're doing once we're on the zone processor is we're going to add control packs to the AV devices.
Is it going to look a little bit different to what you might see on an MHUB version?
Well, very much so, because we're not doing any switching now. We're relying on the AV receiver in this particular example to do all the AV switching. So unlike an MHUB, The layout is a little different because there are no input switches.
There's no switchboard.
There's no switchboard. There's no control panel in the traditional way.
No control panel.
Yeah.
So the very first page that you start off at is actually this
just the general setup page.
Yeah. So there's a slight difference between UOS. Whilst Justin gets on with that. There's a slight difference between the UOS version inside MHUBs and the UOS version inside zone processors. And that's because the zone processor itself does nothing, whereas MHUBs can do switching, they can do volume control, they can request ARC and all sorts of other bits and bobs like that. Yeah. Those controls are no longer required inside the zone processor, so that entire page doesn't exist in the zone processor.
So you'll notice when you see the screenshot that what we do have are global ports for the IR, global 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, depending on the model of a processor or controller. You can see I've already put something onto port number 2, for example, which is the television pack. We've already loaded that up. And we're going to load up
TV
the
pack
TV.
Is for this TV here.
Yep. This TV over here, the Samsung TV.
I didn't read the script.
So we're going to load up a pack onto the first IR output port. That pack is going to control the Apple TV. We're assigning that to the zone we've called the living room for this particular.
Port number 1.
That's port number 1, right. Global port number 1.
Isn't the AVR going to be on port number 1?
No, we're going to do IP control of that AVR.
Oh, of course, yeah, see?
There we
I
go.
haven't read the script. Okay.
So the Apple TV falls under the category of media and TV streamers. The device manufacturer here, of course, is Apple. And we're going to download some test commands for that. The test commands are downloaded from our cloud and presented here. If there are multiple packs, you're going to get the list of commands for all those packs. You can choose which commands you want to use to test and make sure the system is working. I'm going to switch the TV on the old-fashioned way because we haven't set up uControl yet. And then we can test our pack. So, for example, let's use the menu command. Let's test that menu command and see if the device responds. It does. Don't just settle for a single command when you're testing. Take the time to test a couple of commands at least, just to make sure that the system is responding as quickly as possible. When you're happy with the pack that does work, you click install. Our system commits that to memory, and that control pack is now ready to use in uControl. So that's how quickly we load up an IR pack on a zone processor.
So that was like, what, 2-3 minutes, 2 minutes like that. And the search mechanism is super easy as well. If you've ever searched for a car on Auto Trader, it's exactly the same sort of thing. You select the type of product or device that you're looking for, like set-top box, or a media streamer, or whatever, or a display, or whatever, and then it'll give you the brand, and then from the brand, if there's like multiple packs, it'll download them all in one go, so you're not wasting any time. You just test the ones that work, install, and then move on to the next one. The
next device, we're changing the topic a little when it comes to control. We're going for that IP control of that AVR, so we choose uControl IP on the screen. We choose the zone that belongs to. Why? Because IP devices don't have a physical port, they just exist. So we're assigning it to our zone, in this case the living room.
And you might ask the question, why are you asking me about the zone? Because the clue's in the name. It's a zone processor, right?
Single zone.
It's a hangover or something from MHUB OS, uControl OS, but from MHUB. So that in MHUB, which supports multiple zones, we need to know what zone you're adding an IP pack to, which is why it's being asked in the zone processor. It's just so that the interface remains as similar as possible, whether you're using an MHUB or a zone processor. And would you say, Justin, whilst you're doing that, the user experience pretty much is almost the same? So if you learn a zone processor, you pretty much know
you're
an
ready
MHUB
to do the core functionality of a large system with 16 zones.
Pros who are familiar with using MHUB before, from old MHUB OS days, or UOS on an MHUB, will find this extremely familiar. Like you could switch from MHUB to zone processor configuration, like just like that, pretty much. It's nothing new to learn that.
No, absolutely. The same procedure here. We're putting the zone process. I mean the system through its paces. We're making sure that it's switching correctly. In this particular instance, we test the volume, test the power on and off.
What we call this zone, by the way?
We call this the living room.
Perfect. Great name. Could have
perfect
thought
for
of
the
anything else.
application.
Yeah. I think yesterday it was Patney Palace or something.
It was Patney Palace because we were doing a much bigger,
Yeah,
fancier
we were using an
installation.
MHUB, so
Absolutely. So the fact that we
Palace of
see the
2 rooms.
variants there means we know we're dealing with that system.
And why are we using the IP pack for the AVR?
IP packs for AVRs are generally more reliable because we have a bigger range of discrete commands, which means we have very specific commands we can send to the AVR, and we cover pretty much all the major brands.
And that will become more important when we come to configuring the remote control.
Yes.
Because as Justin said in the beginning, with the control expectation, the AVR is going to be doing the input switching. So, we've got only just one input device, but you might have 2 or 3 input devices. You might have a games console. You might have a Fire Stick or an Apple TV or a Skybox. And you need the AVR to switch and have the remote also change its key mapping to whatever good device you want to control at that time.
Correct.
And we will cover that shortly.
Yeah. So once we've done our AV devices, all our IR and IP packs for AV devices, it's time to move on to our smart devices.
That's right.
A smart device, in this case, we're trusting Rayco to do an amazing experience with the lighting, and so we have to create a connection. We have to build an IP connection,
right,
so that the system knows where to send Rayco commands.
Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, so inside UOS, there isn't really any the concept of a driver, or it's not a driver that you're using here. What you're actually doing is you're creating a direct connection between UOS that's inside the zone processor and Rayco over here. And what we're teaching the system, or we're entering details into the system, is basically how to make a connection to Rayco.
Yes.
And then after that, we're going to write down how to send a command, which we're going to cover in a very, very quick moment. But what we're doing first is build that connection first.
Yeah.
So that you can then send the commands after.
Correct. We need to know the IP address, which port and which type of connection. We tell you in our support site. We explain exactly how to do this at support.hdanywhere.com.
Links are down below.
Links are down below, and you just enter that data. You don't need to know or care why it's that port or why it's that type. We just tell you do this, and you do that.
It's a giant copy and paste exercise. Yeah,
very much.
In fact, it is in our roadmap to sort of automate all of that. So you just select the certain devices. If they're really common ones like Rayco, you can just select from drop down. It will populate those fields, and then it makes that even easier. But all the information is on our support site.
All the information is there.
Cool.
So once we've done all of that, we move on to, still on the Rayco theme in this particular instance, our smart device, our lighting system. We move on to creating functions.
Yes, and what is a function?
Function is.
Should I answer that?
Yeah, I think you get on.
Okay. So
an on and off function for the Rayco system.
Okay.
So
that's to turn this lamp
to switch the light on and off. We're just using the lamp as the example. So I'm going to build this Boolean function. Dylan will explain that in a second, and that's going to switch the lights on and off. Right?
Yeah,
and we're going to do this. Just quickly to explain the methodology, we have built onto our support site a thing called a command generator.
Oh yeah, of course.
So what we do need to know from Rayco is, Rayco as a particular brand, and most brands work in a very similar fashion, we need to know some simple data about the installation. Now, if you are the installer of the Rayco system in this particular instance, you will have the software that set this all up. So you will know the room ID, the channel IDs, the scene ID.
It's all in the RASoft.
RASoft,
it's all inside there.
RASoft Pro, exactly. You get that there. You get the data. We need that data, and then you just input that data into our command generator, telling our command generator what you're expecting to be able to tell Rayco to do in this instance, and we'll do that. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to get the commands out of the command generator. I'm going to copy and paste them into uControl and build 2 quick.
We'll put that on screen.
It's all going to be on screen.
Whilst I waffle on for a bit. So yeah. Functions are basically, I'm going to go into analogies phase here. So the step before, we built a connection, which is like building the bridge, and now we're going to send people over the bridge. And then what's the people are the commands, and in this case, Justin is building what's called a Boolean command, or a Boolean function. And what that means is opposite, so up, down, on, off, mute, unmute, and that's precisely what we want this light to do. We either want it to turn on or off, so it has 2 opposing states. And what you'll see is that he's got the ID of this lamp, and he's going to put that into the command generator, which I think he's doing right about
Quite
now.
right. I'm copying the command that has been spat out at me from
Yes.
the command generator. I'm going to go put that into...
Yes, so we've done all the hard work for you. You just basically tell the command generator, and we've got command generators for most of our integrations, if not all of them, I think, even KNX and all sorts of stuff. But you tell it what you want to do, like I want to turn this room on, and it might say, or this light on in this room, blah, blah, blah. It'll spit out the command. You basically copy it and paste it into uOS's function, and then it is ready and available for you to use. And I think at this point you've also said what area you want.
So I'm assigning
the visibility
this to the living room.
yeah.
So the visibility of it could be global. And to be fair, this is a zone processor installation, so there is only the one zone. But if this was an MHUB installation, global would present this function across all the zones, all the rooms.
Yet again, the interface is very, very, it's geared towards MHUBs really.
Yeah.
And so the zone processor is basically a version of the OS
Correct.
on MHUB, but just for a single zone. That's the way to think about it.
The other option, outside of the zone we want to assign this function to, the other option is an option called Do Not Display. And what that means is it will not appear in the app, it will not appear on the remote control, but it is available to build into smart automations.
Give us an example of that.
So a great example is if you do have a particular mood that you want to create with your lights and your blinds and all the rest of it, and
like
you want
a
to
sexy red light.
and maybe it's not one that is pre-programmed into that system, so you want to create a sort of customized thing. You may very well have to build that experience, that look or that mood out of a lot of individual functions that you will then stitch together to create this mood or this automation. Now, you don't really want your app to be populated with 10 extra buttons of things that you were actually just building to incorporate into a single sequence. So when we click Do Not Display, we have those individual functions available to build into the sequence, but they won't go and populate the app.
It's a bit like having a library of commands,
yes,
but you really don't want to show them as individual commands.
You don't want to see every single word.
You only want to
in
see
your
the
book.
sequences that
you don't want to read
attached
your
to.
book by one word at a time in a book all on its own. You really want to read the whole book, which is made up of a bunch of words. So these are the words to build up the book.
Yeah, so that's why the visibility of those functions are important there.
Yeah.
So which stage are you at now?
So we've added the lights on and off. The best practice here, whenever you build functions, sequences, just like we did for packs, is go back in. Once you've saved it, go back into the system and test.
Test your work.
Yep. So if I've done my job properly, which is possible, the light will come on. Great. And it has, so I get to keep my job. But we now know that function works. We've got our connection correct. We can move on to the next one, and just always sanity check yourself. Test your functions as you go.
The system gives you every opportunity to test everything at every stage.
Yes.
So you saw Justin testing the IR pack. We've now just tested the connection. We tested the connection. Now we've tested an actual command.
Yeah.
And it's working, as you can see.
I get to keep my job.
So we're getting closer.
Absolutely. So
and
now,
I feel like our time is running short, so we should probably
get a move on. From here comes some of the creativity, if you will, with some of the potential to give the end users, the people who are actually going to live with the system, the best possible experience, and that is smart automations in the form of sequences.
This is what pretty much sets us apart from like other brands, or certainly from like universal remote control. It's the capability to jump from IR to IP, CC, whatever you want, and controlling lights and mood controls in a room, and that's all done by something called a sequence inside uOS, which Justin is setting up. And what is your sequence going to do?
I'm going to build a room on sequence, a room off sequence,
right,
and a couple of sequences to suit the remote. Remember about planning. We are relying on the AV receiver to give us the best possible switching experience and management experience of this AV installation. And so we are also going to build a couple of sequences that are going to really suit the remote, because we will show you 2 or 3 different ways to make the user's life so much better when it comes to switching on the system or making it all work.
It's the
together.
automation that just it's the sort of cherry on the top, isn't it?
Yes,
really? So
absolutely.
it is. It's really the differentiator, because if you have multiple bits of kit, getting a room into a room ready state or room shutdown state is what you're really selling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's where all the value in the system really is. So, so what's the difference between a function and a sequence? I think I may have touched on it just before. A function is really a single command or a Boolean command, an opposing command. Later on in the future, we're going to add more functions like compare values and so on and so forth. And a sequence is, as the name applies, a sequence of events. Think of it like a macro. Other systems may refer to it
activity,
like an
macro.
activity, macro, scene, and that is what Justin's doing right now. And the reason for that is you really want to build sequences and assign them to buttons on the remote. So you might have a sequence to turn lights on and off, or a lamp on and off. You may have a sequence to get your room or your media room ready. You might have a sequence to turn the entire thing off. You might have a sequence that takes you to console time, or you know, if you want to do some gaming, cleaning mode, set the certain lights to set or a sequence that pauses the TV and raises the lights if the doorbell goes or something like that. Whatever your client is asking for, what we recommend is, if it can be automated and it isn't, you know, too convoluted, turn it into a sequence and assign it to a logical button on the uControl remote, which we're going to show you now, but or very shortly. But that's what Justin's doing right now, and in a nutshell, that's pretty much what a sequence.
Yeah, and again,
is.
What Dylan's said time and time again in the session is planning is everything. Sequences are sequential, and the order in which things happen and managing that order correctly is very important.
Yeah.
So when you are building your sequences, you really want to make sure that that you're building the system with a logical order to the sequences that you're putting into it.
Yeah. Don't. I mean, yeah. You could, if there isn't much going on, the order doesn't matter too much. But if you got a couple of steps inside your sequence, just give it a little bit of thought. Also, if you're new to the system, totally recommended. Take it home, put it in your office, test it, and have a play with it first. Absolutely. So you get to grips with the nuance of the operating system, and you understand what it's doing.
Sign up for our in-person training.
And yeah, if you're that, which you could do at hda.systems/training, funnily enough. Nice and easy. So where are we at with these?
I've built the room on and the room off sequence, and now I'm going to build an example of a source selection sequence that we're going to use on the remote. We'd be able to use it on the app, but it's really useful when we do the remote.
Okay.
Very simple sequence to manage that AVR and make the switching experience better.
A bit better, and the purpose of that is to assign it to a switch event on the remote.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll probably touch on that, and that is a remote level change, but Justin's doing it at this stage. Now, one of the things that the uControl remote has only been on the market since the beginning of the year, pretty much, and what people tend to do, and the reason why we've been saying it, is that they'll take the hardware, plug it into the network, go through that first boot, download some packs, and then configure the remote control, and that really isn't the right way to do it. I understand why people do that, because they're excited, they want to set the remote up, but what we're trying to get over in this video is that there is an order to doing these things. And you need to think about that order, and what happens is, over time, you'll get really, really fast. I mean, we're talking a lot, but if we weren't doing, I mean, I think you've built 3 sequences in.
I'm on sequence number 3.
Yeah, in the time I've been talking about this. Like, it doesn't take that long at all, but it does require a little bit of pre-thought.
Yeah.
Just
And of course, just familiarity. The more you do this, the more familiar you get with the interface, the faster you can move through it.
yeah, absolutely. So we're nearly there, Justin?
We are nearly there.
All right.
Are we choosing that Blu-ray input?
So what is the sequence doing just as a...
So this sequence is going to...
if we just go through it just
sure.
from top down, you just very
top down,
quickly...
Yep. So step number 1 in the sequence is switch the TV on.
Yep.
So in case the client walks in and the TV's not on and they want it to be on, they can get it on. The second step in the sequence...
And we're also checking, we're also able to tell the system how we want to control it via the IR, where it's going to.
Correct.
Okay,
and then we predefined that when we built the device.
Got it.
So the system knows, oh, you want IR for a display? It's the Samsung pack. That's the one we're going to do. And we're choosing the power on command. Then we're going to an IP pack. Out of our potential IP packs on the system, we could have had Sky Q and Roku and all sorts of other things on IP packs. We choose the AVR, we're choosing the power on command, followed up from that same pack by the go to the correct input command. In this case, the Apple TV is plugged into the Blu-ray port. So we're going to the Blu-ray port of the system. That is a very simple sequence. We're saving that, and we're going to be using that in the remote.
Sequence of events.
Yeah.
There we go. Right, next.
Next step, once we've got our packs loaded, once we've got our connections, we've built functions for the connections, we've added smart automation sequences. Now we get to have the fun.
Right. What do
First,
we do?
before we go,
we're going to set up the remote, right?
We're going to set up the remote, but before we do that, and you'll see the remote setup page warns you. Stop right there.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it yet.
Test what you're doing on the system. Make sure.
But using what, Justin? You're not.
Our Apple.
Yeah,
app.
you're like test the system.
Yeah. Test the system on your Apple app. You download the uControl app and you make sure that everything that you want to work over here is in fact working. That if I work the Apple TV, that I'm still getting my functionality from the Apple TV. Where's my menu button there? So we know that's working. We can check our lights and our capabilities. We can.
Why are we doing that though, Justin?
Well, if there's any changes you want to make, it's so much easier to do it here and now and test it on the app, which is live linked to our system, than it is to upload it to the remote, realize you've made a change, go back, do something else, re-upload it to the remote. The app just speeds that process up. So even if your client is never going to use the app is a great tool for you to just verify and check the system, make sure everything's
working. And the reason we're saying this is that we're interested in you being as efficient as possible whilst on site. Your time is money, so we don't want you sitting there fiddling around with settings, tweaking them on the remote, and that's what the app is for.
Yep.
Once you've done the configuration on UOS, test it on the app. It's super fast. It's super easy to see everything, and then move to the remote, because then you'll find that the remote is pretty quick, super quick.
So while you've been talking, I've tested simple control of devices. I've done the room off sequence. I've done the room on sequence. Everything's working the way I like it. The timing's great. Now it's time to have some fun.
Woo! Let's go. Let's go.
So once again, we mentioned in the beginning, caveat, I've already put the remote control onto the properties Wi-Fi network. Right? We call that provisioning. It's a very straightforward process. You can do it off your mobile and sub 1 minute.
It's literally as difficult as putting in your Wi-Fi details. I mean, it's not complicated.
In UOS, we're going to go along to uControl and click on remote.
Cool.
First option, add new remote. Now, when we put this remote control onto the Wi-Fi network originally, one of the things the display is going to tell us, and you will see in the screenshot,
I might be able to get it on my remote.
Is that it's connected to the network and it is presenting its IP address.
It's telling you, yeah.
It's telling us what the IP address is. That's going to be really important for this next step. So first, the system says, are you sure you've tested everything? Make sure you've tested everything with the app. And if you click yes, well, then it's on you.
Yeah, everything we've just said in the video is actually written down, but you'll be surprised how many people don't read it. They just scream right across, like they're just heading towards that glorious remote config page that they want to get to.
So the IP address is 192.168.1.110 for this particular system. We click continue. The system will now check that the remote is in fact there.
Yeah, are you alive? Yes.
It wants to know what zone it's being assigned to, because remember, it's a remote per zone. Remotes can only live in a single zone. There's none of this walking around the property using one remote to control multiple rooms. One remote per room. well, you can have multiple remotes per room, but all those remotes are assigned to the room. That's maybe a better way of putting it. You get given the option to manage or edit the names of the devices assigned to this room because, one, you might find some of the names that are defaulted are not user-friendly. Two, you might find that some just need to be pared down a bit because the remote control screen is much smaller than the screen on your app.
It's basically the remote is. We give you as many tools as possible to optimize the experience on the remote.
Absolutely.
So a nice long title in the app might not look so great on the remote screen.
Absolutely.
So and because it's fixed to one zone, you could just call it Skybox.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's mum and dad's Skybox or the children's Skybox,
it's been allocated.
or the kids' Sonos or your Sonos. You just call it Sonos. It's in your room. So that we give you a chance to modify it, and it's all about making that experience a little bit nicer.
But nicer. Then the most important choice in a media room, the living room, the cinema is what is the volume endpoint? Who's in charge of volume for this room? In our case, between the TV and the AVR as the two possible volume endpoints, we're choosing the AVR.
And this whole process is like a little wizard, essentially.
Yeah.
It's doing all the complicated. It's asking you, what is the basic information I need to know to make the remote to work, and then so that you could go into the deeper configuration. That's what these steps are doing. You're not actually configuring the remote at this moment in time. You're sort of just getting the remote into an operational state,
getting it ready to be customized. The cool stuff.
Yeah.
So the last question is one that comes up quite a bit. We've discovered since bringing the remote to market, which is, are there any devices assigned to this room, AV devices, that you would like to have over infrared controlled out of the remote itself?
Yes.
So we get to choose whether the infrared is coming out of the controller or out of the front of the remote.
That's because and this one's got one of our prototype IR.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. You get to choose whether infrared comes out of one of these ports,
or out of the remote control
using
itself.
one of those things, or from the remote itself. Again, a massive get out of jail card.
Absolutely. If you don't have
Big.
But there's a caveat to that, and the caveat is this: is if, for example, you've decided to tell the system that the infrared control commands for this television are coming out of the remote itself, and all the other control commands are coming out of the controller to the rest of the AV gear, perfectly legitimate. But if you are building commands for this television...
Pro tip here.
Pro tip. If you're building commands for this television into sequences, into smart automations, those commands to this television always come out of the controller. Why? Because that remote, if you're asking it to do automations, is probably sitting stuff down the couch to start off the room. It might be, client could be waving it around and pointing it everywhere except at the TV.
Well, they've got used to the IP control.
So they don't point it at the TV anymore. So it is just a caveat that says the fact that we're giving you this option to send infrared directly to a particular product doesn't eliminate the potential need for you to still have infrared transmitters attached to that product. But again, planning is everything.
Planning is everything. Ask your client what they're looking for.
Or know what the physical requirements are on the actual...
With your choice of hardware, because... But then even then, we've got all the tools in the configuration with customizable power controls, like just out in our latest release of software, that will allow the remote to mimic the TV, so that if you didn't want to automate anything, you wanted to assign it to a sequence button rather than assign it to the power button, it's your choice.
You can do
You
that.
have an unlimited number of ways to control the devices in the room with the uControl remote. The level of configuration is absolutely crazy. And now Justin is in the main configuration screen. Shall we just give everyone a quick...
quick,
just a super fast tour, because I feel like we're running short on time.
So this is the customization screen. We're in the last step now before we save everything to the remote and get the remote ready to work. And this is where you have an incredible amount of power. It must be used with caution. With great power comes great responsibility.
Don't slap sequences and stuff everywhere.
Just because you can customize this remote in some amazing ways, some ways that I'm proud to say, and thank you, Dylan, for creating this for us, some ways that I'm proud to say are even more powerful than some of the much more powerful or more expensive control options out there. So we can do some amazing things here. So if we look at it, we've got a graphical representation of the remote control. At the moment, under select device, we're showing the pre-mapped control configuration for Sky Q in this particular instance. We've also, that's one of the preloaded packs. And you'll notice the dark gray buttons show us which buttons have been pre-mapped by uControl with Sky Q commands. You'll notice those dark gray buttons change when I switch to the Apple TV because it's a different set of controls for an Apple TV.
So it's basically showing you what keys are reserved by that device that you're controlling.
For the obvious controls of said device.
Right. So, Oh, I was about to say, or perhaps I might be jumping ahead. So, like, one of the challenges that we have with this particular setup is we can switch the key mapping from, let's say, Apple TV to the display, but how do we get the AVR to show us?
Absolutely. So this is where we start. When you're using a zone processor, managing the AVR automatically, seamlessly, so the client doesn't have to first do something with this and then do something with that. That's why I built that sequence, and I'll show you a couple of other ways to do that in a second.
Cool.
So we can edit the buttons, almost every key, and I'm just going to use the play button of the Apple TV as an example. You'll notice when I call that up, you'll see on the screenshot that the play pause toggle function for Apple is already preloaded to this button. Now, I can't edit that because why would I? That is a necessary function of an Apple TV.
It's on its remote.
But this Apple TV play pause toggle key also has a press and hold set of events, and I can add sequences, automations, and commands to those. So I can create some very cool effects if I want to, some very cool outcomes. So for this particular example, I'm going to add something just for the fun of it, not because it's a good idea in everybody's home, but just for the fun of it. I'm going to add something to the press event of this key, and I'm going to go to the functions that I built earlier, and I'm going to choose the movies function, which is a dimming function for the lights. We're going to sort of movie mode. Although we did call this the living room, Dylan, so maybe actually we don't want to do that for a press. We want to do that for a press and hold. And the reason is, in the middle of the day, you may not want the lights to do anything. A cinema room is totally dark because it has no windows. Your living room, on the other hand, could very well. So if I press play in the middle of the day, I just want the Apple TV to play. But we're going to add this function to press and hold that says, do the movies for me. And I'm going to add that key event. So now we've got play and pause. And if I press and hold play and pause, I'm also going to dim the lights.
Sounds good.
If I want that to happen, I can. I'm going to add on the Apple TV's play pause command again, so that's also going to happen when I push and hold.
And you can see these events on the key press.
Yes.
Right. So it's all very visual.
Very visual, very graphic, very obvious.
Yeah, very obvious. And it will tell you that there's a customization on that button.
Yeah, the button is changed to blue, which tells us we've done something customized.
It's very easy.
Keys 1, 2, 3, and 4 that you see on your screen, those are never going to change. Whatever you put on there stays there regardless of the device that you choose to control from the rest of the remote. So that's where you could potentially put some of your lighting controls and automation.
Sequences or functions.
Yeah, so sequences.
Functions, I don't know what those are. Yeah, sequences is.
We're going to
put the sequences on it.
We're going to put the lights on function onto the press event of that particular custom key, and we're going to put the lights off function onto the press and hold event of that particular key. And when I get to the lights off function, I'm just choosing the false value, because remember it was a Boolean function that Dylan explained earlier, and I'm adding that key event. So now when I press, I get lights on. When I press and hold for 3 seconds, I'm going to get lights off. Great.
Super easy. And again, you have the choice. If your client says, I'm never going to remember that, like press it and press and hold, you could just tell the configurator to draw your menu. So instead of knowing that the sequence button press and hold turns your lights off, you just press the button. It will tell you what you want to do.
Lights on or lights off. Choose it with the up down, press enter.
It's however you want to do it. Yeah. We'll keep saying it. But we spent a very long time making sure it works like that. So
the next button we're going to talk about is the power button. We have some very cool capabilities when it comes to editing the behavior of the power button to suit the room or the people using the room. So in this case, we've got 3 possible options for the power button. List mode, which is our default option.
That mirrors the app, by the way.
Yeah, mirrors the app and basically lists all the possible power commands for every device assigned to this room in the AV space. So every AV device all its power, all those power commands are listed here. You'll notice there's an X next to each one. I can edit out the ones I don't want. So for example, it's generally a very bad idea to switch skyboxes on and off. They should ideally just stay on. So I could, for example, in list mode, edit out the sky commands here, so that the client will only see, or the end user will only see, Apple TV and AVR commands. Great. It's up to me what I do here.
Yeah.
I can add things, I can take things away. I can make a list that suits me.
The idea with the uControl remote, we've said it before, we're going to say it again, is maximum customization. You can show whatever you want, hide whatever you want, rename stuff. It's like it's a remote designed specifically for that one zone. And to make it as easy as possible, one of the design challenges was to make this smart remote feel familiar enough so that your mum or your dad or your grandma or your grandpa could just pick it up and use it. That is what we've tried to design in the uControl remote. Okay,
Absolutely.
so
the next behavior is room on and off. And remember, I built those two sequences. I built a room on sequence and a room off sequence. So we can get the power button to quite literally just become press it and the room comes on, press and hold it, the room comes off, or I can turn that into a menu, as Dylan said. I'm just going to put them there. So the smart is on and the press and hold is going to be off, and the actions performed you can see at the bottom here. Room on is on the short press and room off is on the long press.
Just like Panasonic TVs, you tap it once, it turns the TV on, you press and hold it to turn it off. We're going to do that here, but we're going to do it with the entire media room turning on and the entire media room turning off. Okay, perfect. That makes
so because I'm hiding it, it turns it into press for on, press and hold for off.
Yeah, super easy.
And the last option, just quickly to cover, is TV only mode. You literally, when Dylan said we can mimic a television, we could do that at an absolute level and turn the power button into a TV power button only.
That's a good idea if you want the remote. If your client, you have some other smart devices in a room, but you've sold the uControl remote and they're just happy having the remote control TV, and you could then do the lights or the Sonos from the remote control afterwards once the TV's on. But the choice is yours.
And now we get to the crux of something we've been lining you up for, which was, as Dylan mentioned earlier, how do we manage the AV receiver when we're choosing what we're watching? What device we're watching. So in this case, this particular room is two devices, an Apple TV and a Sky Q, and they are plugged directly into the AV receiver, which feeds the TV. So when I choose one or the other, it's not an MHUB doing the switching, it's the AVR doing the switching, and we want to make that as seamless as possible for the end users. So to do that, we've got two methods. The first method is, remember, I built a sequence for the Apple TV in the system. I'm now going to add that sequence to the Apple TV input selection. So when I press input and one of the options is Apple TV, I'm going to manage my actions for that input selection. I'm going to select a command, in this case a sequence, and the sequence is going to be the one I called Apple TV. I'm going to add that menu action, which means when I press that input, the remote is going to be set up to control the Apple TV, and it's going to execute a sequence that switches the TV on, switches the AVR on, and switches the AVR to the Blu-ray input, which is where I plugged in the Apple TV when I did the installation. So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it, now that benefit of doing it this way, by the way, is that because I've built that automation to switch a TV on, switch the AVR on, go to the correct input on the AVR, because I've built that as a sequence or a smart automation, it's also available on the app should I need it. It's also available to my iPad wall mode or my uControl Rhythm Switch Pro, because that's a sequence that I've built is now available across the uControl ecosystem.
Apple Watch,
anyway. The other way to do it is remote specific. I can do something very similar, but do it just on the remote. So I'm going to use the Sky Q input as the example of this. Again, managing the actions for what happens when I select Sky Q in the menu. What I'm going to do this time is, instead of choosing a sequence, I'm going to choose a control pack. I'm going to say I want the AVR control pack in this particular instance. I want the AVR to switch on, and I'm going to add that action. Then I want the AVR in the control pack to go to the Blu-ray input. And because I wasn't thinking clearly, I should have put this as the first action, because it's the device that takes the longest to boot up. I'm going to add one more action, which from the control pack is the TV, and I'm going to make sure that the TV switches on. So I'm going to add power on. I'm going to add that menu action. So now with SkyQ, instead of just loading a sequence that had those 3 extra functions or commands in them, I've literally added them one by one
onto the key,
to the actual
it's
key.
called a key event. Yeah, so when the event is you've selected something from the input menu and you can manually add it in just here if you wanted to. Justin's method of building a sequence is probably the better way to do it. Absolutely. Because it's more modular. You know, you can then edit the sequence independently of you without having to reprogram the remote. Whereas the second method is really like a get out of jail card again, but it just gives you that extra layer of flexibility so that you can do very special things with the remote. Absolutely. And again, you're limited by your imagination and your client's requirements again.
But apply that with sensitivity to the people.
It's limited
using
to
the
4
system.
steps as well.
Yes,
so like
four things you can add to each key.
Yeah, so you can't go you can't build like a 20 sequence.
Yeah, we've purposely limited you. You could build a massive sequence and add that one sequence to a key event, and it's considered one thing. Yeah. So that is the better way to do it. When we're happy with everything,
I think we are.
Save to remote. What's happening now is uControl is bundling that all together in a configuration file that it's handing over to the remote control. It will upload all this information into the remote control. It will reboot the remote control, and the remote control will then be ready to be used. Now, depending on the size of your packet, I don't want to say the size of your packet, that's possibly wrong, but depending on the complexity of what you've built, if you've built something complex, it may take 30 seconds, it may take a minute. We're turning around in just under 30 seconds here. The remote is saying, please wait, because it's rebooting. It has now come back to us saying, I'm connected back to the network. I am now the living room remote control, and I'm ready to work the living room.
We're ready to go. Yeah. So let's give it a test spin.
Let's give it a test spin. The light's on at the moment. Let's just do something simple and test the lights. I put that onto custom key 1, and I said press and hold will switch the light off. Light's gone off, great. And if I wanted to switch the light on, I just have to press, right? Let's press and hold and get this room off from the remote. Entire room's off. AVR's gone off, TV's gone off, lights are off already, but lights have gone off, and we're ready to go. We've just walked into the room. We want to get the room on, so the press event on the remote control should power up everything. Lights come on, display comes on, AV receiver comes on. And I've asked the AV receiver to go to the correct input, which is also important.
And there we go. Box fresh zone process. We've gone right through the configuration and the order, which is super important. Don't go in blind and do it when you're there. Figure it out before. Make sure you know what you're doing. We've gone through, built a bunch of automations that get the room on and room shut down. Yeah. We've added individual lighting control, and we've demonstrated that when probably about the same amount of time as the MHUB video, maybe a little longer for a simpler product. So I don't know whether or not that's very successful on our part or not, but we got it done, and hopefully you now know how to do that. So we did skirt over some of the more, we said you could do a lot of custom stuff. Yeah. We didn't really go into that.
We haven't done a deep dive.
Would you like us to do a deep dive? Let us know in the comments, and we will do a super long video. If you want us to spec a system, or you're unsure which system, a zone processor or an MHUB might be best suited for your single room or your cinema room or your media room application, go to hda.systems/builder. Answer 3 or 4 questions, and we will respond within 3 or 4 hours, I think, pretty much.
That's our general turnaround.
With a specification or some additional questions that you need to answer in order for us to give you a rock-solid recommendation of it. I've been Dylan.
I'm Justin, and it's been great to have you here.
Have a great day. Goodbye.